Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Board Operations Committee meeting to order for Monday, May 5th. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll go to item 2 on the agenda, which is approval of the previous meeting minutes. Has everyone reviewed or anyone have any comments to the meeting minutes from May 5th, 2025? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 3 is public participation, but we've had no one sign up for public participation. So we can move on to items for discussion. Item 4.1, the disposal report.
Disposals for June 1st include IT equipment, radios, library books, music instruments, food service equipment, and some obsolete furniture. There's nothing out of the ordinary on the list.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that? All right, moving on to item 4.2, treasurer's report.
Good afternoon. I will be reporting out on the April 2025 Treasurer's Report. District had $143.2 million cash on hand at the end of April. Comparative this time of year, last year we were at 144.4, so pretty close. As you look at each fund, we're trending pretty evenly to last year as well. Revenues received at 64.7% compared to 64.13 last year. Everything is on pace. Our interest, it's nice to see that we are over budget at 8.2 million and we have 2 months remaining, so that's positive. One thing I'd like to bring to your attention, if you look at page 2 of the cash balances or cash ending balance for April 30th, if you review the IMRF fund, you'll see that there is a negative balance. What we found is the system was reporting both employee and employer contributions to IMRF, Medicare, Social Security, FICA, and so on. So there will be a correction made, and you will see that update for next month.
Okay, does anyone have any comments or questions on the treasurer's report? All right, thank you. Item 4.3, donation report.
Donations received in June 2025 are from the Parent Teacher Council, donated to Lake in the Hills Elementary School. Quite a contribution. It was about $12,000 worth of equipment, which consisted of a triple chute play system, a poster maker, and a book vending machine. You should have pictures of some of these items. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them for you.
Yeah, I just had a question. I don't know if you know, but I think this book vending machine is really neat. Did the students is this like where they're redeeming credits or something to be able to get the books?
Yes, they get a token. So it is, from my understanding, it is a birthday book of the month type incentive. So they receive a token and then they get to select whichever book title that they like.
Neat. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? No, that's a very, like you said, a very generous donation from the PTC, and we appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4.4, employee benefits contract renewal.
That would be me. This is a renewal of a contract through Northwestern. This is part of our annual, part of our wellness plan. Every employee participates in a wellness blood draw. So this is to continue the process that we've been going through for the past few years. It's also part of our collective bargaining agreement with our teachers union. It is offered to every employee, as well as offering a flu shot when they are available, being paid by the district. So this is just a continuation of our services that we've had the partnership with Northwestern is going to continue, is yield really good results as we oversee the data and insurance committee meeting. We have a very high participation point, close to 85% of our eligible employees do participate in this particular wellness program. It's also our intent to make sure that this is a way for us to attempt to lower our overall cost for health insurance. As you all very much aware, they continue to go up on an annual basis. So this is a small investment that we feel is a very good benefit for all of our employees.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions? All right, thank you. Item 4.5, Employee Handbook Administrators and NUG 2025-2026.
Thank you. That also will be me. As you are fully aware, in the last month or so, the board approved the new collective bargaining agreement with LEAD, as well as an extension to the DESPA contract. This particular handbooks right now are to cover a group of 72 non-union employees. That's what the NUG stands for, non-union employees, as well as our administrators. We are recommending the salary increase as presented in the memo. These are very much at par with what has been approved by the board on the two previous contracts, which will be for our LEAD contract and the extension of the DESPA contract, or custodial and clerical staff.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that? Okay. Boy, you have a lot of items today.
Hey, when it's my turn, it's my turn.
Item 4.6, Temporary Staffing Services Contracts Renewal.
I wish I could solve this problem, but I think this is the problem that every district has across the state and across the nation, making sure that every single one of our students' needs are met by a certified person. This particular list of contractors, those are on a temporary basis. So when we are not able to fill all of our paraprofessional positions, we partner with an outside staffing agency to help us find temporary solutions. Our ultimate goal is for us to hire District 300 employees. We constantly are doing that, but unfortunately, in order for us to meet more specifically IEP needs, which is a legal requirement, we do have to go to an outside agency. The other agencies that are here, one of them is to help us support with sub-custodial staff, as well as our sub-services. As you are aware, we are finishing our 3-year contract with EduStaff, who is our partner in staffing for sub-services. We are asking for the extension of the contract for another 3 years. With this partnership, they've been able to help us in backfill some building permanent subs, as well as helping us with long-term subs. We do deal with a lot of leaves of absences, over 350, mostly for maternities. Good for future customers, new babies, but it does help us with making sure that we have a certified person in front of our students on every day, on any given day. So those are the contracts that we are asking for them to be extended for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that? All right, moving right along. Item 4.7, Copier Maintenance Contract Extension.
Yep, that's me this time. So our district currently relies on Ricoh as the sole provider for all copy printer services for a fleet of Ricoh brand printers and copiers. This includes consumables such as toner and comprehensive maintenance and repair of our fleet. So we are just looking for a 1-year renewal of our Ricoh contract for $141,240 coming out of our technology budget.
Thank you. Any comments on that? All right, moving along. Item 4.8, Technology Services. Technology Services Contract Renewal.
Yep, so more renewals, nothing new to the plate here, just our annual renewals. So our first one is B&B Network with our Mitel and WriteFax. So Mitel are our phones, and WriteFax is how we can use our fax machines and digital faxing. And so that is a renewal of $71,421.76. Then we still do have some smart technology in our district. We still have some teachers that are utilizing smart technology, so we were looking for another one-year renewal on our smart learning suite, so that none of our teachers have to switch over before they are ready, and before we have all the equipment ready for them. So this is a $40,705 ask coming out of our technology budget. The next one is our Learn platform. This is just coming on here because they wanted to add it to all of our technology thing. It's $17,836.70. Learn platform is actually what we use to track and monitor our digital tools. So it has a dashboard for all the different applications we use in the district. And so we can see how many students are utilizing it, how many staff are utilizing it, and we can also track, are they compliant with SOPA and other student privacy laws. Our next one is custom computer specialist. This is actually for Tableau. Tableau is our data analytics software. So that one is for our teachers and staff, so we can monitor student data, whether it's from staffing or from assessment data. All that kind of stuff is run through our Tableau servers. And so our one-year renewal for Tableau is $79,312.50. Our next one is Securely. Securely is our web filtering for our students. It is on all Chromebooks, whether they are in school or not, we are still filtering. Parents have the ability to add additional filters at home with Securely Home. And so we are looking at a one-year renewal on that one as well for $116,000. And the last one on my list is VMware. VMware is our virtualization software. So we do still have servers that we maintain within the district. We still have stuff that we do maintain in the district. So we use virtualization software to make it so that we don't have to have physical servers for every application we use. It also adds to our ability to have disaster recovery. If something happens, we can just spin up that server from our backups and have everything back up and running in a quick manner. So that one-year renewal is $71,808. We recommend that all of these be renewed for the next school year. $317,771.46 will be covered out of the technology budget, and then $79,312.50 will be covered out of our data team budget for Tableau. Any questions? Thank you.
No, thank you. Item 4.9, weed fertilizer insect control bid.
Yeah, good afternoon. As a yearly part of our grounds maintenance, that's kind of close and loud, sorry about that. Your ground maintenance program, we bid out the application, fertilization, and maintenance of our school properties, perimeters, and of broadleaf weeds, and then also grub control and stinging insect control. We bid it out in May, and we got two companies that responded. The lowest responsible bidder was Trinity Landscape, who is our incumbent, out of Carpentersville, Illinois. The administration recommends taking that contract for the year at an estimated cost of $128,474, which would come out of the Maintenance 20 fund.
Great, any questions or comments on that? Thank you. Item 4.10, waste and recycling services extension.
Yeah, the Board of Education approved in April of 2022 initial contract for waste removal to Groot Incorporated. We would like to exercise our 3-year extension on that contract. They've been giving us great service. That contract would run from July 1st of 25 to June 30th of 28. The estimated cost for the contract is $174,929.40. This covers all our waste and recycling, commingle, lamp and ballast recycling. But one of the biggest things that Diane White and Nicole Kennedy worked on was to get them to include the replacement of the Hampshire High School contract, or compactor into the contract, which would have been a big expense that was original to the building and failing. So we appreciate our purchasing department going after that to get that into the contract. So we're pretty excited about that. If you can be excited about a compactor, I mean, I guess I am. So
A free one.
there you go. Thank you. I got some there. So the estimated annual contract, like I said, was $174,929, and the 3-year estimate is $524,788.20. This is an increase of the CPI of 3.4%, which is allowed via the original contract.
Great, any questions or comments on that? Good work getting the compactor included, thank you.
Very excited.
Yeah, definitely. Item 4.11, Interactive Touch Wall of Fame Project, Dundee Crown High School.
Yes, so Dundee Crown High School, we got, right now, they honor the students in the athletic hallway with pictures on the wall from 1980 and their hairstyles from 1980 to 2009. The one issue with that is that we have no pictures or no recognition in our hallways from students from 2010 to current. So what Dundee Crown is trying to do is to join Hampshire High School and Jacobs, who currently have interactive walls, with a digital 21st century recognition system. This will be enclosed in a nice enclosure, so it'll be attractive to the eye, and this will take all of our, so it'll be on the right there, the full wall enclosure. And this allows us to put in pictures from the history of the school, from the students. It allows us to put in statistics and really go deep into it. So, yeah, I got one that's excited. That's great. So the other thing you can do, which is a cool feature, is let's say I graduated Dundee Crown in 1991. I'm at home at Thanksgiving. My future son-in-law doesn't believe that I was a football legend. I can go onto our district website, go to Dundee Crown's webpage, pull up all my achievements and my picture, and it's accessible online as well. So that's another thing we're pretty excited about. The other thing is that this is going to be fully funded by the Boosters Club. The total that for the interactive system and also the enclosure, annual service is not required because we already have a server there on site that we can use, so that was removed from the original bid. And that the total is $13,711 that will be, like I said, reimbursed by the boosters. A couple of the questions we had in the past was, what are we gonna do with the old pictures? Our athletic director and APO are working on that, but the one great thing that we found out is while you're not using the actual wall, it has the ability to scroll a kind of a screensaver. So you can scroll all the old pictures. So you can stand there and watch them scroll by all the kids and the hairstyles that have come back into fashion and things like that. So the administration is recommending we move forward with this. As like I said, the cost was $13,711 with it completely being reimbursed by the Boosters Club.
Great, any questions on this? Comments?
Yeah.
I'm aware that Hampshire and Dundee Crown currently have the system. Well, you said
Jacobs
that.
do, yeah, you're correct. That's
Okay.
correct, yes, yeah.
So do they use this in the same way that Dundee Crown is planning on using
They,
it?
Hampshire uses it a little differently. Hampshire's is more of a team base, and they've actually, they add more to the past. Like one of the examples Mr. Sitter gave me was that they just added like the 1956, like ninth grade championship team, onto their system. But how they honor the individuals. If you qualify for state, they get a banner and put it in the commons area for a year, and then they move it to the field house. Any of the teams, they honor more of the teams down there. So any teams that make state, they get a banner up front by the trophy case there, and then they move them down the hallway. Jacobs does it similar to what Crown is going to do. They have a small wall of fame that dates back to just about, I think 2022 is the last student that's on there, because it's a smaller wall and they kind of rotate it out and then they put those pictures into the system. Same thing for then any person that gets to state, they have around the actual wall of fame, the display. And then as soon as they run out of space there, I think there's place for like 10 pictures there, then they also include them into the system digitally.
So when they implemented these systems, whenever they did that, what did they do to archive anything that came off the wall? Like, do they have best practices in place that they can share with Dundee Crown? Because I think that's
did
some of the
not.
concern, is what are they going to do with the things they take down, and how are those going to be categorized? And somebody's always has to know where they are and how they're organized and all that.
Correct. Apparently those pictures are one big sheet for Dundee Crowns, because the first thought was to shrink them down to make them into smaller posters, but they're just really large, like rolled pictures. Like the whole wall is a picture for each year. So I know Mr. Gertz and Mr. Malik are working on trying to figure out how to either shrink them down, cut them individually, or so they are working on that actively this summer, but there's no solid plan on that. But that's one thing they want to do, is honor those pictures and make sure that they're not just cast aside.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about, earlier iterations of this deal was that they were gonna have to spend 600 at one point and 500
Correct.
at one point to keep up the software or whatever. What happened to that?
So they have a Hall of Fame one that's a little smaller and older there that's in that area, and that server can handle everything from that unit. So that'll actually, they already have the infrastructure there set.
So, but who is gonna actually enter information into the?
That would be the school. The school's responsible, kind of like in Hampshire, where when they get more information and they get history, they put it in there and they update it. Like Mr. Sitter said, they constantly update their older, along with the new stuff, the older pictures and groups.
How, are they gonna also do, archiving all that stuff on the new system too? from
That's the plan. Yeah,
before?
that was one of the questions where, you have all these old, I don't want to say old, these pictures that are still in color. The pictures are up there. And so,
Nothing wrong with black and white.
I know, there isn't wrong, I know.
Yeah, the 80s were in color.
Just want to make sure we were at the right
Yeah.
age. So,
I
so,
remember when
You don't
TV
wanna
was
lose
black
any
and
of
white.
okay. So basically, yeah, they want to capture those, and that's where the scrolling screensaver comes into play, where if we can get them on there and because it's a larger screen, as you're walking by or as it's just sitting there, not in individual use, those pictures will scroll through the history of all the athletes.
I guess my concern is, are we gonna use school district resources to upload all that information?
No, I mean, not anymore. Originally, in the beginning, there will be some time, place for that, but as you go, it'll be almost like you're putting stuff up on the wall, and it'll all be digitalized, so you can just download all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do they have a process in place on doing the updates, like just piggyback off what Nancy just asked?
I don't
So
know
that it doesn't become obsolete after a couple of years?
I don't have an individual process like solid in place right now that they've given me, but I know that they're very excited about this to get this into place. And like I said, Hampshire, the other schools, Hampshire updates theirs routinely, and then Jacobs has a constant rotation that Mr. Ziles works with.
Just one more
Yeah.
question. Are there costs associated for Hampshire and Jacobs annually? And who pays for that?
Okay, I can definitely find that out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're asking about Dundee Crown, then we should be asking who pays for all three. Thank you.
I do just want to re-clarify, this is not a cost to the district. And that it would give Dundee Crown the opportunity to have what our other two high schools already have donated by the boosters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just would like to add, I appreciate hearing that the passive state of the board could be a slideshow, because I think that was the main thing that I was personally struggling with, is it's just, you're standing there waiting. I doubt very much that I would go try and type in people's names that I might have known, but just being able to see the history still scrolling through it, and the new athletes who haven't been celebrated the way they should have been for these past 15 years. I'm glad that we're getting that all. It seems like we've found a good balance where we're taking care of all of that, so thank you.
Of course.
One more quick question. Do you know offhand when the system was instituted at Jacobs and when it was instituted at Hampshire?
Hampshire's was 8 years ago when they got theirs. Jacobs is newer. I believe that, I don't know an exact date, but I know that's newer because it's that little bit bigger system.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anything else from anybody? All right, thank you. Item 4.12, change order approvals.
Yeah, the following change orders are for this summer's construction 2025 work that are outside of the contracted scope. So we have 3 of them here tonight. One is for Dundee Crown and the staff lounge changes. This is for some masonry and lintel work for some of the, I know there's one big window in there that's gonna need some work in there, and some masonry work around it, and then some door hardware and door changes that were made after we got through the contract. That is a total of $14,129. Jacobs has a cost for electrical connections at the start and finish lines which will help them with timing. I was not a track athlete, so I don't know all these things, so this is great stuff to know. Also, we wanted to asphalt and make the high jump official. Right now, they start on the grass and they start running and then they get onto the surface, so we wanted to make that an official length and all the same surface. And also we would like to add an additional long jump lane next to the one that exists on the visitor side, on the sideline. We were able to fit that in there. That'll allow them to do continuous, to speed up the events a little bit and give 2 tracks instead of 1 on that. Those total costs are $88,427.88. The other cost is for modifications that were approved by the board, I believe it was back in January, for an estimated total of $143,000. And this was to modify the parking lot if you remember when we did our traffic survey for drop-off, we had the queue out onto Route 72. This allows us to bring all of our cars that are waiting out of harm's way into the school. It can be absorbed with this queue and with this modification. So those costs came in at only $3,000 over estimate at $146,000, which we're pretty glad to see. Following procedures for change orders, board member Christine Burkett looked over it, approved it, and we are looking at a total construction contingency fund cost of $248,702.88 for these modifications and changes. If approved, the balance of construction contingency left in the allowance would be $362,179.
Any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Going back to the track.
Yeah.
A lot of these changes, and I'm not objecting to changes or anything like that, but I'm just curious. A lot of these changes seems to me could have been things that were brought up at the very beginning instead of having them pop up now. Do you know why they happened that way?
Some of the requests came in after when we had initial conversations, and then when the bid went out, and then we had some, hey, we'd also like to do this. And when we looked at it, obviously, yes, it would have been better to have it before, but in the big picture, we want to make sure that this is the time to do it. We're taking this track all the way down. So we wanted to accommodate them, especially since it affected the actual individual part of the race or the competition.
So what's the normal, so do you include for instance, the track coaches and stuff from very beginning?
We engage the school with the APO and the AD and talk with them and go through them, any questions back and forth. Architects are there, they're out there walking it, and our construction team, and then we put the bid specs together, put out the bid, and then the requests came in a little late, but we wanted to make sure that we did it and we did it right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I would like to note that when we spoke about these change orders, these things at Jacobs that we're adding are bringing in line with, I believe you said Dundee Crown also had.
correct,
So
that's correct, yeah.
we're not adding anything really new. We're kind of just trying to do that thing where we're trying to make sure that we have the same thing like for like at all the high schools as we're working on the improvements.
And Crown's adjustments were made years ago before we redid the track, and they're off of the track area. They have that flat space to the west, a huge area for the long jumps and the triple jump and the high jump.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Oh, I actually have one more. When will the Dundee Middle School parking lot be completed?
We're looking at having that completed before the school year starts.
Wonderful.
Yep.
All right, item 413, construction update.
This is the fun one. We are in full swing. This is week 2, and we are just excited. I was over at Dundee Middle School today, looking at the geothermal project that they've got all the ceilings gutted, the ductwork's going up, piping's going up, all the new equipment's coming in. It is just, it's flying. The roof, they've been tearing the roof off, getting that done too. So it's crazy over there, crazy good. And the theater renovations at Hampshire High School and CMS, they actually ended a day early at CMS for the abatement, so that was great. We get an extra day hopefully there. And then also at Jacobs, they are doing the piping, electrical piping in and things like that, some of the infrastructure work there. Hampshire flooring, the abatement is going to start 2 days early, so that's another win, we think, because then we get it back 2 days earlier, hopefully. But the carpet in the area that's not done has all been taken up. The flooring's been taken up. It looks, some of the flooring there was interesting, but it's all gone now, so that's great. Newbert Construction, their flooring is all torn out, and then also some of the classrooms, I think there was, last time I counted, there was 8 classrooms that have tile actually down in it. They still have to do the trim and the base and all that, but the flooring is flying in there too, so that's excellent. We're happy about that. Let's see what else. Gulfview is right now, they did a lot of work at Lakewood, Gulfview, and Oak Ridge over spring break, if you remember, for the intercom, some of running the home runs and all the wires. So they're concentrating on Gulfview right now, tearing into that, and that's on point too. So all our projects are either a couple days ahead of schedule with the abatement or right on schedule. There has been no, knock on wood, any kind of issues, major issues right yet that we've seen. So our partners are just kicking butt. It's awesome.
Just see Chad's face back there.
Why?
You just, you just said.
I jinxed him, yeah,
Yep.
sorry. So, any questions?
I just, this is my favorite time of year,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, and if you have a chance, swing by Meadowdale. The old playground is out and leveled, and the new playground is going up. It's pretty exciting, so,
That's great.
yeah,
Great, we
Thank
can't
you
wait to,
again, John, for everything you guys do.
thank you.
can't wait to see all the photos when it's all, when it's all behind us. Thank you. Item 414, Village of Pingree Grove Pingree Grove Intergovernmental Agreement. No.
Okay, better? Okay. As you know, the Village of Pingree Grove has asked that we enter into an intergovernmental agreement with them regarding the village's collection and then disbursement of impact fees. As I let you know, this is not my area of expertise, which is why I've asked Mr. Kevin Gordon from our external counsel to come speak with you on this topic tonight. So Kevin, if you'd please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me out. Ms. O'Keefe had asked me to take a look at the proposed intergovernmental agreement. I'm not quite sure where you guys are in your level of knowledge about school impact fees. So I'll just...
Enough to be dangerous.
Enough to be dangerous? Well, that can be said of a lot of us, right? So just to... All right. I think oh, there it is. All right, like being at a concert. So one of the things to understand about school impact fees is that there's no obligation for a municipality to pass an impact fee ordinance. It's completely at their discretion, whether they want to help you out as development is occurring within their boundaries. So that's one thing to think about. Most municipalities have created some kind of a school impact fee ordinance. The ordinance at Pingree Grove is not terribly unusual in its structure in how they come up with, the calculus for what a particular impact fee is going to be. Usually they're expressed in terms of land donation, and then they're reverse engineered to come up with an impact fee on a per house basis, depending on how many bedrooms it has and how many students it's anticipated to create for the school district. And then it's all based off of a price per square acre, and again, reverse engineered for a particular lot size in-house. I noticed in the Pingree ordinance that there's a blank for what they've decided is the fair market value of property in their village. It may be that that blank has been filled in by another ordinance that I was unable to locate online. That's not unusual for the ordinances to not be fully up to date online for municipalities. The other thing that you always have to be wary of is whether or not the village is keeping up with a designation on fair market value. Sometimes you find that a village has not updated the fair market value for 15 or 20 years, and it's woefully inadequate. Now, there's also a push-pull politically, as you can imagine, at the village level regarding what's an appropriate amount to charge for a school impact fee. One, it's got to be rationally based, and they typically use, like I said, a formula, and it's typically called the Naperville formula. because it's been tested. It's actually a formula that has been tested in the courts and approved by the courts. But you can imagine that at the village level, there's always a lot of tension between not wanting to, wanting to help out the school districts and also not wanting to set an impact fee that is so high that it discourages development, and so that the developers go one town over and build their developments. And then there's always the idea in some, there's a faction in every village that is anti-development, right? And so they wouldn't mind setting the fees really high. That's not really your issue. Your issue is what happens when they set the fees and the developers come in and they start paying these fees, and what do we do with the money from there, and what is our exposure, right? And one of the rules is that the money that is spent or that you collect for school impact fees for a particular subdivision, let's say, has to be spent on the schools that those students would attend, all right? So I apologize, I am unfamiliar. I know you have a lot of schools, right? But if impact fees are collected in subdivision A, right, those fees can only be spent on capital improvements at elementary, middle, and high schools serving that subdivision A, okay? It's not a free-for-all. You can't use it to fund capital improvements in a school in another part of the district that these students wouldn't necessarily attend. So there's accounting issues on your end, and I'm sure that your business office is well aware of these. If you guys serve multiple municipalities and are probably receiving impact fees under multiple different ordinances. Pingree's new here in that they've asked you to sign this intergovernmental agreement that, hey, we'll continue to collect impact fees under our ordinance, but we want you to sign this agreement that basically you agree as a school district to indemnify the village in the event that their ordinance is challenged for any reason, right? You didn't have authority to do it. You exceeded your authority. Your designations don't, fair market value, or your calculations don't make sense and are arbitrary. You're giving it, the money to the school district, and the school district's using it for other inappropriate purposes, right? The village gets sued. The village wants you to defend them, okay, and pay all of the costs, all of their attorney's fees, any judgment that is leveled against the village. And then if the plaintiff's attorneys are awarded attorney's fees, and that can happen in certain limited situations, you'll pay those as well. So as you can imagine, there is the possibility that the cost of defending a suit will exceed the amount of the fees that you obtained under this ordinance, right? So that's an issue that's out there. I don't know what the risk of that is, right? We don't know. I know Pingree Grove is not very big now. I know that they have, their boundaries are not extensive, but there's always the possibility in the future, as development comes out this way, that they will start annexing property and they will become a bigger and bigger municipality. And so that's something to think about. That is not to say that this is it's not a good idea. There is, I would suggest to you approaching the village about amendments to this intergovernmental agreement that would allow the school district and a developer to enter into a private agreement in lieu of paying impact fees under the ordinance, where the school district would waive its right to impact fees under the ordinance, and the payments would not go through the village. They'd come straight to the school district, and the school district would provide information to the village that impact fees, that the school district and the developer have come to an agreement for the payment of fees outside of the ordinance, and everybody's waiving the ordinance, and we would like the village to go ahead and issue the building permits anyways. The reason we have to do this with the village's agreement, I think, is because the only way that a developer gets impact fees, or I'm sorry, gets a building permit, right, for a house, is to pay the impact fees to the village. So we need the village to agree that if we can come to a private agreement with the developer, you'll go ahead and issue the building permit anyways, okay? In a lot of municipalities are perfectly happy to get out from the middle of that. They don't want to stand in the way of you getting impact fees, but they don't want to be on the hook for legal defense costs if their ordinance is challenged. Now, you know, we can, as developments are proposed, we can talk, you know, about the specifics of what would be a good agreement with the developer in that particular case, such that everybody would waive the ordinance, right? And they may vary depending on the development, the size of the development, where the development is specifically, how fast the development is anticipated to occur. And you know, we can talk about, you know, what that would look like given more information in the future. But if we can get the flexibility from the village right now that they would honor a waiver and issue building permits, that would you know, that would cause this agreement to be something that you could probably go ahead and recommend to the full board to sign. You know, it's always possible that the village will, in the future, waive the fees, waive the fees or waive the ordinance, meaning that they could, in an annexation agreement, say, we really want this development, we're going to annex this property, and we're going to suspend the impact fee ordinance anyways. This just gives you, you know, the ability to try to negotiate. It'll help give you a little bit of leverage in the event the village is ever thinking about doing that as well. Do we have any questions? All right. Let's see if we can make you.
Become even more dangerous.
Yeah, I was going to say, this will make you a little more dangerous.
Okay, so just so that I can wrap my head around this whole thing, just in general, impact fees, like you said, there's nothing there's no statute that says they have to give us impact fees, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then how would you measure whether or not a particular impact fee in a litigation was out of line in any way, shape, or form?
Well, a lot of it, you know, remember that in order to cause a significant amount of financial impact on the school district, right? Anybody with $200 or $250 in a piece of paper and a pen can file a lawsuit. Usually what they say is that the village's ascertainment of the fair market value is arbitrary and capricious, right? And all they have to do is knock out one element of the equation that the village uses to create the impact fee. And they, you know, most of the equation has been tested in the courts, at least in the second, I believe it's the second district. But the one variable that changes all the time is fair market value. And it actually, you know, it could change, right, from one section of the municipality to the next, right? When they pass these ordinances, right, they establish a fair market value throughout the village. And while Pingree Grove is not a very big municipality, as it grows, there will certainly be an opportunity to argue that that property in one part of Pingree Grove is more valuable than property, or less valuable than property in another part. And so that affects your equation, right? You know, there are other ways that they can attack the equation. They could probably attack the equation based on assumptions involved, you know, in the Naperville formula regarding the number of students necessary, or, you know, that need, or the acreage necessary to support a certain number of students. Certainly the Naperville formula, it's at least long have I been in Illinois? I've been in Illinois for 26 years, and it was here when I was starting out. So, you know, we're talking about a formula that is based on assumptions that are at least 30 years old.
So a developer comes to a village and they say, we want to develop this property, and the village says, sure, but part of the way you're going to get your permits is you're going to give us impact fees. Don't they negotiate that right up front?
Well, they can, and they often do. So the village may say, we'll reset the fair market value, or we'll reset the fees for this particular development, because we really want this development, right? And they have that ability to do that. They have to be careful about doing that from you know, because they're doing it under the auspices of an ordinance of general application across the village, and they have to be careful that they don't run themselves into a situation where it looks like they're picking favorites, right? They have to apply their ordinance equally across all of the developers that come into their village. And if it looks like they're cutting breaks to certain developers, they're going to get themselves into trouble. But with the developers legally speaking.
Okay.
Right?
So how does that work if they don't have any, you know, if they are not held to any amount they have to do, have to give, you know?
Well, the village, you know, the village I think is going to try to find that sweet spot with the fair market value analysis, right? And like I said, they're applying it across the entire village. And so there may be instances in which they come to an overall development agreement with a developer for a different fee. They'll have more ability to do that as they annex property to the village under their annexation agreement, which would set the terms and conditions for the annexation of additional property into the village. And what you see oftentimes is that there is a provision for school impact fees to be paid, but it's different from what the village ordinance would otherwise require.
These IGAs, like they're asking us to sign in.
You know, this has become more common for villages to ask school districts and park districts to indemnify them from the costs involved in the exercise of municipal authority, right? The thought process on their part being, you know, we're trying to be a good neighbor, we're doing this voluntarily, we don't have to do this, and so we as a village don't want to incur the risk of litigation or funding litigation, if you will. Why should the village fund a $150,000 lawsuit because it was out of the goodness of its heart in their minds, right? Passed a school impact fee ordinance that doesn't financially benefit the village, right? Now, we all know that good schools benefit the village, and that if good, well-funded schools benefit the village, right? But it's not something you can see on a balance sheet.
Have you ever been involved in a situation where there was litigation under one of these IGAs or without one?
You know, and I'll be honest with you, only once when I was a very young attorney in McHenry County. I remember the case number because it was just unusual to me back then. It was 2MR2. So I had always thought that was kind of funny, but maybe only to me. That was the only one involved Cary School District 26 and a few other school districts. It was brought by a very large developer association in the area. And I'll be honest with you, the school district and the firm I was with at that time parted ways before the end of the lawsuit. I recall that the suit it carried on for many, many, many years. And I remember having to go to the school district to try to recreate all of the impact fees that they had received over numerous years. and try to figure out, what is the exposure here. Other than that, I've not been directly involved in any challenging, it's a cost that's ultimately passed on to the consumer, right? We're all very familiar with that concept at this point. And what the developers want to make sure is that the fee isn't so high that it causes their homes to not be affordable in the price point that they want it to be in, right? And that they can still make their profit on the home. So I think perhaps the economic irony is that the larger the homes, right, the more expensive they are, the less of a percentage impact a school impact fee is, but then again, the more students it generates for you. So.
The difference between an impact fee, if there is one, impact fee and a transfer fee?
Transition fee, perhaps?
I've seen it as transfer. I guess
Transfer,
transition.
right. So this is where it does get a little bit interesting. The municipal code has a very specific provision regarding school impact fees. And it's developers are supposed to set aside a certain amount of land for school purposes that they can pay cash in lieu of land, which is hence where we get the impact fee. Transition fees, in the school impact fees are meant to pay for capital costs, right? We got 500 new kids out of this development, worst case scenario, right? And we've got to build an addition, or we got to rent or purchase mobile units, or our HVAC won't support this many kids, right? Some kind of capital improvement. Transition fees, though, are meant to help with the operational costs associated with educating students that occur between the time that the house comes online and the kids are coming out of those houses and getting on buses and coming to your schools, and when the increased value of that property hits the tax rolls, right? Because we know that there's always a delay with assessment and then payment of the taxes in Illinois, just because of the way the calendar hits, right? So those kids that are arriving in your schools this next fall in 2025, that house's tax bill for the full amount of the house may not be realized until 2026 and not paid until 2027, right? So there's that delay, and the transition fees are meant to help with that. They don't fully, address the issue, but they are intended to help.
Great. Sure, provides transition fees for the district.
So is that another thing that municipality can decide whether or not he wants to do that?
It is, yes. That would be another voluntary. All of this is voluntary on the part of a municipality, whether they want to exercise their jurisdiction
And so
to impose
I'm
those.
sorry.
Go ahead.
So then, and also impact fees and
Transition?
fees apply to other taxing bodies too, like the village itself and things like that.
You often see them for not necessarily transition fees, I suppose, for like park districts and things like that. But I would imagine that it's possible that they could assess them for fire protection if fire protection is separate from the village and things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just anybody want to be a little more dangerous?
I have a question. I'm just a committee member. Are they asking in the intergovernmental agreement for all of the taxing bodies that accept the impact fees? Are they asking all of them to indemnify them?
Right.
And Park District and all of them?
Right. If they are, that would be by separate intergovernmental agreements. It's not unusual. I don't see why they would treat any of the other, you know, governmental bodies differently because it's the same risk no matter what. You know, I think the other piece to this that is interesting, right, is I'm assuming that Pingree Grove has been providing you with impact fees. No? Okay, so this is brand new. Okay, so they have an ordinance I didn't see when they adopted. Oh, I see. I see. So I don't know how long they've been holding on to these.
22 years. So, and I can tell you that they haven't collected impact fees. This is a first.
Right.
And the current board president, village president, as we call it, she just felt passionately that this is something that they should step up and finally do. I don't know if
Good.
you know much about Pingree Grove, but in 2005, it had a population of about 200 people, and today it sits at 10,000.
Right.
And it is 4 square miles in totality, so
It's gonna
there's
fill up.
not a lot more expansion or things going. There are still homes being built out there,
Right.
but there's not much room to grow. So I would safely be able to tell you that about 80% of the development is done as far as that goes. So, yeah, so that's the scoop there. But they've
That's-
never provided any. She was the only board member that supported this, but she fought for it. She negotiated this with them, and they have the money that they've collected. They've already collected the money from D.R. Horton as a developer, and it's just, they don't want to release it until this is signed, so.
Right, right. So a couple of things that go with that, and I think it's wonderful that they would consider doing that. There is always the possibility of annexation to become bigger territorially, I think. I don't think they're landlocked. Are they? They're bordered.
Not going to let go of the land that they have.
Right.
That's not Pingree Grove's.
Okay.
Be shocking
Because
if they
the
did.
agreement does require you to indemnify for all of the impact fees collected past, present, and future, right? So if there had been a long history of collection of impact fees, you would potentially have be incurring risk for a number of years, right? In order to access those funds. Again, I don't know how much it is that they've collected and to what extent. The other piece to that, now that we have a little bit of context, right, is how does, you know, I had suggested to you that an option might be to ask Pingree Grove to allow the parties, the school district and a developer, to enter into a private agreement to waive the ordinance, right? And it sounds like a lot of development has already occurred that you wouldn't have that opportunity because the fees have already been paid, right? So, you know, that's another consideration. The other thing that you have the right to do, right, under this ordinance, let's say the village is sued, right? The school district has the right to intervene on its own behalf and defend the case, right? And then settle it, right? So you could intervene and settle for less than what was being asked, ideally, right? The other thing you can do is if the village is sued, they're supposed to give you notice of it, and you give them within 30 days, I believe it is, you know, a request to defend, that they defend the suit or not defend the suit. Now, presumably, if you tell them don't defend the suit, right, they're not going to defend the suit, and they're just going to end up having to pay a judgment, whatever the judgment is. So it would be better to intervene on your own behalf so that you can control the settlement. But again, then you're stuck with whatever facts that took place with the development of the ordinance, the collection of the fees, and things like that. I don't know how long Pingree Grove has been collecting the fees. You know, not long is what I'm hearing, right? And so, you know, how statute of limitations plays into that too. I think typically it's a 5-year statute of limitations. So anybody who paid a fee after 5 years, they wouldn't be able to challenge their payment of that fee. But it sounds like we're within that universe, so there is a risk.
I have a question that's a broader based question. If these type of agreements are more prevalent now when it comes to impact fees, is it possible that because, I mean, we have a lot of villages that feed into our schools, obviously, so Algonquin comes up next. Before they give us their next batch of impact fees, are they gonna want us to sign one of these? So is this something that, you think will happen, that we'll have to just look at these case by case, or?
It's possible. I don't know that it's more common to see these kinds of agreements. Now, there are a lot of villages who are very comfortable with their development ordinances and that they're not going to get challenged because they've been around for a long time, right? They've been working with the same developers for many, many years, and they know and they're confident in how they put everything together. Pingree Grove, right, is a little bit different. It's new. They're very small, right? And so they probably do worry about, are we going to face, a $250,000 liability for trying to do something nice for the school district and provide, I don't know how much there is in impact fees that they're holding, but, they don't want to go in the red on something like that. Right.
I can answer that. They're articulating that they currently have 866,000 collected and anticipate up to 2 million once all buildings complete.
Okay. And a lot of, it's something that the school district's going to have to decide for itself is, what's the risk here? And what's the benefit, right? Obviously, $2 million in fees can go a long ways.
I mean, I just wonder, whatever we decide ultimately about Pingree Grove, to me is kind of an aside at this point, because like I said, they're at the end of their trajectory. But I just wonder how it's going to affect us going forward when we look at all the other development in Hampshire and Algonquin. And, do they fall into the category that you're saying? Are they comfortable and they're not worried about it? Or are they going to present agreements like this to us too, that we have to figure out what we're doing? So.
Right. And, I'm a lawyer. I'm paid to come up with worst case scenarios, and, it's always raining and it's always doomsday. School impact fees have been around for a very long time now. It does not seem to be a highly litigated area. You want to make sure that in case that worst case scenario comes along, you guys at least went into this eyes wide open and felt like the benefit was worth the risk in collecting the fees.
Just from a historical perspective, because when I worked here, this is what I did. They did collect impact fees, and they were inordinately out of line with what every other village did. They were $1,000 for a townhome or condo and $2,000 for a single family home. This is when West Dundee and Algonquin were at $5,000 or $6,000 for a single family home.
Real low.
Why we never got the money though? They never gave us the money. They gave it back to the charter school. So they gave it as a credit to the charter school. So we never saw the dollars, but they've been collecting impact fees for a long, long while. After the charter was built, they still gave them a lot of that money, but now they have the fund, and now they're also, I think, on their third village manager in the past 4 years that I've met with, and in my consulting role, and they're still fledgling to figure out kind of who they want to be and how they want that to happen. So they're working through.
Well, I have no doubt if we don't take this money, they'll give it to the charter school. So that's just probably going to happen. So.
Yeah. So my dealings with the villages, I don't know about Jen, but that none of the others have mentioned that they are looking at anything like this. None of them have mentioned looking to be indemnified. And I think the lawyer is correct that they're very comfortable in their ordinances. And but I think it would be good to go back to them and say, give us the history of what you've done, because we had impact fees for a long, long while, just we never saw them.
Sure. But at the very beginning,
They gave the land, and the initial calculation on the first D.R. Horton development was like $5 million, and they used that as the seed money to build the charter school. That's how they got it built, was by promising from like almost 3,000 units, all of that impact fee to the developer.
I had a question. If you enter into it, into this agreement, are you ever able to get back out of it then? Because it sounds like we're in kind of a split scenario where some money has already been collected, but
Right.
if we wanted to follow your suggestion of moving forward, can you sever that agreement to then move forward in the way that you described, where we're just dealing directly with?
It's not a marriage of forever. You can get out and terminate, but your obligation to indemnify the village will endure as to any fees that you are provided.
That makes sense. And then when I said the thing about kind of like picking winners and losers and incentivizing too much, would we have to cover the village if that, is that the litigation that we would also have to cover?
Yes, I mean.
Anything
it's
associated?
any theory that a developer or a homeowner could come up with to challenge the ordinance. And interesting, who's going to sue, right? A developer who has passed that cost on to a homeowner isn't going to be the one that can sue you anymore. They don't have any damage. But the homeowner could say, wait a minute, I should have, I shouldn't have had to have paid this amount of a fee. And again, I don't know what the fee is that Pingree Grove is charging, and it may be very, very low, especially compared to surrounding municipalities. I think when you get more, obviously there's more risk when the fees start to escalate. There are certainly municipalities who have what some people would consider to be pretty exorbitant impact fees, and they're there for a couple of reasons. One, to bring money in and help the school district, but also in some respects to discourage development, right? So I don't know where Pingree Grove falls on that scale.
And per this agreement, do we get any oversight or any place to be able to say, whoa, 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 you're wanting to charge a crazy amount, or your fair market value is not, why is it doubled? Like, do we get any?
Right, you don't have the right to do it. Certainly, I would think that the village would be willing to listen to you and say, I mean, it's a rare school district that says, no, you're giving us too much money. But if you were feeling uneasy about the fees that were being charged, right, you could probably have a conversation with them and say, hey, how are you getting here, and maybe we shouldn't be getting here as fast. I would think that the village would be open to that kind of a dialogue with you.
We have had those conversations in the past.
Yeah.
On fair market.
It's about, it's about a relationship with the village, right? And maintaining one that you both are comfortable with on this particular issue. And certainly there may come a time when you have to have, your relationship with the village is going to encompass other issues. I don't know if you have a school in Pingree Grove or anything like that, but your relationship with the village is important, and it's not just about school impact fees usually.
My question is, since they have collected the majority of these fees, it sounds like already, are we allowed some sort of risk assessment as far as details on what they've collected, how they've determined the fair market value, so that we know what we're getting ourselves into if we accept this money, or have a better idea? It sounds like we don't have an idea.
Well, entitled is, are you entitled to it? You're not entitled to a detailed explanation, I suppose, right? You should feel like you can have that conversation with the village. We just want to understand how you got here, right, over the course of time. I mean, you could probably file Freedom of Information Act requests for data, but it's not necessarily going to going to fill in the blanks, right? You're going to see what was collected and when, and what was the fair market value that was used on particular times. But you're not necessarily, unless you want to try to collect all this data and engineer it yourself, which may not be the best use of time. But, you know, a conversation with them is, you know, it may be worth it, right? May be worth going to them and saying, hey, you've asked us to indemnify you. Why? Right? What are you, or is there anything you're particularly worried about, or is this a whole belt and suspenders thing, right? And engage their motivation for this at this point.
You said that there wasn't anything in their ordinance that sets out what they're asking for in impact fees. It's like per house or whatever, per.
I didn't
Is that
see
unusual?
it. Oh, you know, I didn't see it in there. I specifically saw a blank when it said, you know, here's the fair market value that we're using. It's not unusual for villages to leave that blank because there are some pieces that are dynamic, like fair market value is a dynamic element that changes over time. And so rather than redoing the whole ordinance every 3 years or 4 years, they just pass they pass a resolution or a standalone ordinance that fills in the blank or changes it, and it just hasn't shown up online. You know, and then what they do is they use all of this information. Once you have the fair market value, you have all the factors in your equation, and then they run a table or they run a schedule periodically that they have. So they don't necessarily publish that within the ordinance. They just have the schedule.
Anyone else have anything?
You feel sufficiently dangerous?
No, that was very helpful, and we've all learned something new today. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Chuck, did you have anything else you wanted to add historically as you've listened to this that would be helpful?
Probably like a half hour's worth, maybe 2 minutes.
Well, I'm going to adjust the agenda, so take time.
In 2 minutes, I can tell you that there was, over time, there were more conversations. When I met with them, so I meet with the villages still as your consultant on housing and collecting that information. We met about 3 years ago, I think it was the last time I met with them. They were going out of a village manager and they were going into having a lawyer run the village again. And I think they're back now to having a new village manager, right? And what they did do is they did come up with a fair market value, and they did have a structure for impact fees, which was lower than like Algonquin or West Dundee, but much higher than they had in the past. They were always about the 70,000 per improved acre. They had moved that up to about 100 at the time, whereas the other village were maybe at 130. So they did find a middle ground, and they were doing much more, and that fee was higher. But I don't know where they're at now, and I don't know what they've collected, what that was based upon. What I can tell you is that I was just talking with John earlier, Hummel, about we're getting ready to do our attendance boundary thing again. It's time for me to go meeting with the villages again. This could be part of that conversation to say, where are you guys at now? How comfortable are you with your assessed value, with your, where are you at with all of that? And we could get that. The only thing I would say is that you probably don't want to hurry into this agreement. Make sure you know everything that you need to know, especially with their changing folks. Sounds like the village president is in good stead and really wants good things to happen for us, which would be awesome. But let's make sure that we have all of the information as a school system that we need before moving forward with anything. But I do know that they have been trying to make the ordinance better and to make things better for the school system. So.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so it sounds like we need to, if possible, is there a timeline on this that we have to get back to them by, or?
Ask came in, several months ago, and now we're just bringing this, multitude of reasons to your attention for a conversation. we can absolutely just reach out to them and let them know what was presented tonight, that the board's in the middle of having discussions and that you'll be discussing it as an entire board at future meetings, if that's kind of where you want to land. Now, one other piece of information I will put in the room is, I think Mr. Bombalis asked the question. It's my understanding that the fire protection district did enter into an identical agreement with the village. It looks like in 2023. So just putting that in the room for consideration as well.
Can I just make one suggestion, though, when you talk to, or whoever talks to the village president, or whoever can make sure that they understand that we appreciate this and that we're, you know, we're definitely interested, but we just need to work out some stuff.
Absolutely. Kevin,
Yeah,
you
I'll
can-
follow up with them. I've been talking to her.
Thank
I'll
you.
follow up with them, and then I'll follow up with Chuck as well.
Thank you.
I have another question for you, Colleen, really quick. When I look through this, the thing that jumped out at me as that could be problematic is the reporting feature. Like we have to send them a report about exactly where the money goes. Is that something that could be problematic? It seems like it would be, but I don't know.
That is typical when we do request impact fees, is that we do send a letter and then we explain exactly where those funds were spent. So that is a typical piece that they ask for.
Exactly, yeah, that helps them defend that the money's going to those locations that it's supposed to. And really what it means is that your business office has to set up accounts and separate accounts for each municipal's school impact fees and transition fees, so that when they run expenditure reports, they can see the money coming out of those funds. The good news is that the village isn't asking for approval of your expenditures, right? They just want to make sure, you're spending it on the schools that the kids go to.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody.
That was really interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
All right, item 4.15, master facilities plan update.
Well, I'll do my update, and then I'll have to update about our other partner that was waiting virtually because they had another meeting. So we'll have to reschedule that part. So I'm going to be underwhelming compared to what was prepared for that. As you know, we did our most recent operations update during the April 8th meeting, which is a printout. And then for our new members, welcome. You have the printout of all of our current work, so the work that John reported out on, work that we are in throughout the upcoming school year, work for next summer, and then all of the proposed projects moving forward after that. Our consultant group that we had on the line was Jennifer Volk from Discovery Works Collaborative, and she was going to engage in a conversation with us about how they can support our next phase, which would help advise us towards a monetary decision, which would then bring Liz Hennessy from Raymond James back into the picture. And ultimately, this would be where we engage with the community through that consultant with a charge sheet from the board to determine the next steps for funding, which could include, I'm going to say it for the first time, needing to go out for a referendum in the future. And so she will be invited back, and it's not a skip over, it's just a reschedule. And so that's where we'll pick up.
Sorry we took up so much time on.
No, I mean, we have to get to all of it, so we just have to keep prioritizing what's important and making sure that we make the right decisions, but we also don't want to pass up money if that's available. So I think that is the appropriate conversation that needed to happen today. Oh, I have a couple more things. Just to make sure I have all the questions for the touch wall. The follow-up questions would be, what were the costs and who pays for that for the two that are currently in place at the other two high schools? And then just confirming HHS is went into place 8 years ago, and when did Jacobs receive theirs? Were there any other questions that John and I need to follow up on that? Because we would like to bring this to the board
Yeah.
meeting tomorrow night.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that John didn't know when one of them was 8 years and the other one he wasn't sure.
Yeah, we're gonna add that as one of the questions to get the
Okay.
answer.
Yeah, just curious.
We want to bring this to the board tomorrow evening. Okay?
The old information.
Yeah, the school level will be responsible for that, and they're working on coming up with a plan for that. I'm not gonna have that by tomorrow. We'll give you an update. But the other two are things that we would engage in to make sure are covered. We're not just gonna throw the pictures away.
Okay, I mean, that was I think
mean-
what our concern was, is as long as they're working towards whatever the best way to do that is, et
No,
cetera.
they will
so-
preserve them. They won't
Okay.
just throw them away.
Okay.
If that's what happened previously with the other two schools, I'm just gonna put it out there. We weren't in charge of this then. We didn't have control over that. We hear the concerns of the board, and we will make sure that our community assets are preserved and that our partnerships stay strong between the board and our boosters. That's the goal.
Yeah, okay.
I think the most important thing to me is making sure that it doesn't become the same situation that we're in right now, where it becomes obsolete because somebody is not doing the updates.
Yes.
Just left behind. just
Yes,
left alone.
we are a team that is very aware to not destroy partnerships or the history of District 300. I cannot speak on decisions before us or why things were done to that depth, but we hear you loud and clear that that is an expectation.
And we know that, and we appreciate that, but I mean, because I- this is definitely just a short story, right? My daughter Riley was over at Jacobs the other day because she's doing the band camp. And Mr. Newtuck has a wall up with all these pictures of kids who had been in his classrooms over the years, and she found her picture, and she was like really excited about it, and then went and looked at everybody else. So that's that kind of thing, we just want to make sure that there's a way of people, if they want to get their pictures, et cetera. So as long as that's something that's being done, then that's good.
Yes, and so that we're all on the same page, the goal here is that we're able to maintain our partnership with past alumni, our current boosters, and within that school community so they can get up to speed with what the other two schools have as well.
Right.
And so that's the goal, that all stakeholders involved, all those partnerships remain intact.
Because ultimately, every kid who comes from this district, no matter how long ago and how much farther in the future, we care about every single one of them. We want to make sure that that's evident and people understand that.
100%. And so we'll be following up with that tomorrow because we want to bring this back to vote during the board meeting. And then I do want to give Jen Porter well wishes as this is her last meeting with us and just the appreciation that you have done all of this work for District 300. And so thank you.
Jen. Thank you. We're going to miss you, Jen, a lot. And thank you. I join Dr. Smith in saying thank you for everything you've done. And your, the finance department in this district has been incredible all these years, and you've been a big part of that. So I really appreciate it. We're going to miss you.
Jen, did you said you wanted to was this a good time?
I wrote this down because I didn't want to not get it, but I wanted to take a moment to thank the people who have made this work so meaningful. The operations team who you see here, who talk every single meeting, do an outstanding job. Their tireless commitment, attention to detail, and their unwavering standard you bring to your work. You are a high-performing, dependable group of professionals. And I've been so proud to work alongside of you. From day one, our focus has always been the same, how every decision we make impacts students. That clarity and shared purpose have guided everything we've done, and it's what I'll remember the most. I also want to thank the members of the board. Your time, your questions, and your engagement in our work have been very much appreciated. I've taken this responsibility seriously and have always strived to serve the district with integrity, transparency, and focus. I care deeply about public education and the people who make it work. And I'm very proud of what we've accomplished together, and I leave with gratitude for my time with District 300. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes, thank you for everything you've done. We will miss you. All right, with that, we are on to announcements. The next Board Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 15th at 4:30. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.